The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon on the East Coast and good morning on the West Coast. We want to welcome you to our webinar today that we will be discussing using social media to market your law firm. The Martindale-Hubbell Legal Marketing Network helps attorneys grow their practice through real-time lead generation, custom website services, and live chat. As the largest legal marketing network, they connect more customers or consumers with attorneys than anyone else in the market. Just a brief overview. I know that there was a question as you submitted your registration and wanted to give you some results from that. The question was, do you have a social media presence? And 244 registrants responded yes. 77 responded no. Our hope and goal today is that whether you are already in the game with regards to social media or you are kicking the tires today to find out if this is a viable option to market your practice, we hope that each and every one walks away with some valuable information that you can use. So that is our goal. Let me take just a minute to introduce our panelist. Joseph P. St. Louis is a lawyer. He has dedicated his 25 plus years of experience to criminal defense. Joe is a certified specialist in criminal law by the State Bar of Arizona. In addition, he's a board-certified lawyer by the National College for DUI Defense and an instructor of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration course for standardized field sobriety test practitioners. He speaks regularly at events across the country, and we're honored to have him with us today. Thank you, Joe.
Good morning.
Guy Sakalakis founded Attorney Sync and EPL Digital. He has a BA in philosophy from the University of Michigan and a law degree from Wayne State University. You can see some of what Guy has been up to at Avo's Lawyer-nomics, Lawyerist and Attorney at Work. Welcome, Guy. Dory Eldridge has been working in digital marketing since the Wild West days of 2000. During her 8 years with Martindale-Hubbell, she has helped legal clients generate targeted leads through SEO, blogging, and now social media. She currently manages Martindale's social media and pay-per-click products and works on the company's social media presence. Welcome, Dory. My name is Ben Henderson. I will be your moderator today. I received my BA degrees in both English and political science from Houston Baptist University, where I also captained the basketball team. I spent 6+ years as a territory manager with LexisNexis, and when the opportunity presented itself to return to Martindale in January of 2016, I jumped on that chance and enjoyed the best year of my sales career to date. So again, welcome, and we're looking forward to you being with us today. Our agenda is consists of a social media presentation. We will have a panel discussion and Q&A, and then we'll wrap things up this afternoon. Just a little bit of housekeeping, webinar info. We ask that you please submit your questions through the webinar platform. We have muted all participant lines for all of our sanity, but if you will submit your questions through the webinar platform, we certainly appreciate it. Our panel discussion and Q&A session, we've allotted about 35 minutes. Any unanswered questions will be responded to after the event. A webinar replay will be provided to all the attendees and registrants after the event. And should you want to contact us directly, we hope you'll jot this number down in Sarah's email address as well. So poll question number 1, how often do you use social media as a marketing tool? And we'll give you just a couple of seconds to respond to that poll. Once a day, multiple times a day, once a week, multiple times a week, not at all, hardly ever. And if we could go back to our presentation. So here is our quick poll results. 6% say once a day, 7% multiple times a day, 18% once a week, 15% multiple times a week, and the majority say not at all, hardly ever. So we, again, hope to provide some valuable information and spur you on to use the social media platform. I'm going to turn the call over now to Dory Eldridge, and she's going to talk about why social media.
Thank you, Ben. So yeah, why social media? I bet one or two of you have asked yourself that question, especially if you end up getting a lot of your referrals, a lot of your business right now through referrals and word of mouth. Keep in mind that social media is basically both of those things combined these days. It's where people are going to get answers to their questions, get recommendations, and find out about a service provider before hiring them. Recent stats show that 2 billion of us are on social media. And more importantly, 1 in 4 attorneys say they've gotten clients through social media activities. And actually that stat was the same in 2015 as well. So there's some consistency there. So that's great things to keep in mind. So specifically to criminal defense attorneys, why should you guys be on social media? And it's really to help clients find you. More so than other practice areas, criminal defense attorneys, you really need to make sure that you are where your clients are at the exact moment they need you, because they have an immediate need for your services. And it might not just be them, it might be family members from out of state searching for an attorney who wouldn't have a word of mouth referral for your area. So an active presence on social media can improve the chances of them finding you over your competitors. You can also use social media to answer questions about, to help people weed themselves out as non-cases. You can answer questions that they might have that will determine if they need your services or not. It also adds some privacy for them. A lot of people don't want to ask their friends and family to recommend a DUI attorney, for example. Social media also is a great opportunity to connect to local businesses and other people, organizations that could refer you clients. It's a way to get your message out to more people, and by broadening the reach of the articles that you're writing, and a way to showcase your expertise. And most importantly, social media is a traffic driver to your website where people can then call, chat, or email you. So where do you start? You always start with a plan. So the first part of the plan is figuring out how you want to drive those leads. And with social media, you're going to be using content targeted to the types of cases that you want. One of the questions we got from a participant for this webinar asked about the types of topics that are worthwhile to share or post. And this is a great question. You really want to try to answer common questions and use those opportunities to highlight your expertise. And this encourages trust from the start with potential clients. The next step of the plan is you want to maximize the impact of the activities that you're doing, and social media is great for that. It helps you get exposure for your content and your brand and your name far beyond just your website or a possible email marketing campaign. And the last step is building trust, in which you can do by providing high quality information on the social media, and do this at a steady rate. So for example, you would do like a weekly updates to your profiles and answer common questions, and do this in a tone and a style that makes potential clients feel comfortable with you. And this will help, again, build their confidence and trust in your services. The second part of this is casting a wide net. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for any attorney, but for criminal defense attorneys, you really want to be present in as many places online as you can reasonably manage. So you want an active presence on the top platforms. And you want to make sure that you're your profiles are active, because inactive profiles do not do you any service at all, whereas active ones make you look engaged and accessible. You can use social media to promote the articles that you've written, especially ones on like the ABA Journal websites or other sites with high traffic. You can promote those articles and drive even more traffic to your own website through those, and use social media to get even more exposure for the articles. Again, you can broaden your referral network. Social media is obviously great for this. Get your name out within the business community. And you can use like LinkedIn to connect with people, and a great idea is to comment or engage on other people's Facebook pages, businesses that might be a potential referral for you. And finally, social listening. What are people asking about? What are they saying? You can use all of that for ideas on how to get content. All right, so thank you. I'm handing things over to Guy.
Hi, so we're going to talk about choosing the right platform, and really when you're talking about choosing the right platform, the first stage is who are you trying to connect with, and why are you trying to connect with them? So, it might be a referral, it might be, someone that might be facing a criminal charge, but that's really the brainstorming process. You have to begin there because different platforms are going to have different audiences, and people use these platforms in different ways. So one of the most classic examples is that if you're posting a lot of just general social content on LinkedIn, you're going to tend to get people that are saying, I'm really looking for something that's more business oriented. So law firm social media presence, there's some stats here, a lot of lawyers on LinkedIn. I would suggest this, if you're going to pick one, I would pick Facebook. I think that in terms of just staying top of mind with target audience, people that might actually need your services, people in your community, other referral sources, people that in your personal life, Facebook's going to be where most people are. And so if you're going to pick one, I would start there. But again, for professional networking, finding organizations that might be online that might be good resources for referral relationships, I think LinkedIn's pretty good. And there are other social networks you can get involved with, and there are even some specific social networks that might be for very specific communities. And so looking into those, I think, is really useful as well, and diving into your local community, who are the people in your community that are participating online. Look for those groups. Look for Facebook groups. If you want to get in front of journalists, Twitter can be good for that. But I think that spending a lot of time on Twitter for generating people that are looking for criminal defense attorneys is probably not going to be as effective. So really spend time figuring out where the people are that are discussing issues related to what you do, and even beyond that, look for those groups in terms of your local community and things that you're interested in. So I think that's one thing that lawyers tend to overlook is spend time online connecting with people that are interested in similar things. Those kind of connections are going to be much more powerful than if all you do is turn out legal content all day, which can tend to be a little bit dry depending on what you're posting. Look at what other platforms that lawyers are using. So some lawyers have done a really nice job of really building strong connections with people online, so you can borrow from them as well. Try to avoid, there's also a lot of lawyers that I think are probably not great examples. Try to avoid repeating your marketing commercials on social networks. People don't want to see that. I mean, think about the things that you want to see on social networks. A lot of it, especially talking about Facebook, it's going to be more things that are social content. I think that's the part that everybody misses in the social media marketing conversation is everybody's focused on the marketing, focus more on the social, because those are the connections that are really going to make a difference in terms of what you're posting online, getting that in front of that target audience, and having that target audience actually like, comment, share, and otherwise engage in that. And even beyond just the major platforms, look for things like chat forums or question and answer sites, especially as they pertain to your subject matter as well as your local community. The final one that I will throw out there is a more general kind of question and answer site is Quora. It's Quora. A lot of times people don't think of that as a social media site, but does really well in search, and so people that are looking for those questions on Google end up finding sites like that. So being visible there and participating in conversations there, I think can be really valuable. So another poll question, what social media platforms do you currently use? And you can choose one or more of the following: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, good old reliable Google+, or other. And our poll results, 77% on Facebook, 32% Twitter, 73% LinkedIn, 23% Google+, and 14% other. Not a huge surprise, Facebook in the lead, followed slightly behind by LinkedIn. Those tend to be some of the most popular platforms, certainly amongst lawyers, and 23% on Google+. For me, I've actually found Google+ to be really effective. There's a lot more signal and a lot less noise. Sometimes the more popular a platform is, the more noise there is. So if you haven't checked out Google+, it might be worth your time. But I think if you're looking, again, to connect with people who might be potential clients, might be referral sources, especially at the local level, you're probably looking at Facebook, followed by LinkedIn. Twitter, great, again, for connecting with journalists and news. If you want to get PR kind of visibility, I think that's useful. All right, so developing the right content is really, it's where the rubber meets the road. Just picking a platform and creating a profile or creating a page, it's kind of table stakes. The key is like, what are you putting out there that people actually want to engage? A lot of people ask about quality and consistency versus quantity. One thing that I always tell people, especially if you're just getting started, you don't have to spend a ton of time on social networks to get, pretty good connectivity with people. Spend time on your commute, assuming you're not driving, waiting for motion call, these little down times, little 10-minute, 15-minute investments here with actually connecting with people versus just broadcasting marketing message can be really effective, and also can put you top of mind when someone's actually making that decision of, oh, hey, I actually need a lawyer, or I know somebody who needs a lawyer that does this. So focus on that engagement, spend more time on the commenting, on sharing, than just solely on broadcasting. Also think about images. Imagery is really powerful on social networks. People expect to see imagery. So if your firm is doing something, I think highlighting good works in your community is a great use of social media, whether it's participating in charity or nonprofits or supporting a cause. Also just pursuing whatever your interests are. I think, again, those are the things that are going to draw people of similar interests that have similar passions for, whatever the type of activities that you're sharing. You're going to draw those people in your local community, and that's going to help you grow that visibility within that community. Demonstrating expertise is good if you can pull it off. Again, you got to remember your audience here. If you're just like publishing links to like treatises that you're writing on the law, probably not going to get a lot of social activity. But there are ways to do creative imagery, creative videos that show that you know what you're talking about on your subject matter, but that are also interesting or even entertaining, and that kind of stuff. Again, I know we think of some, especially in criminal defense, it's like a lot of serious subject matter, but the more that you can demonstrate your expertise but also make your content engaging, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck or time spent on social media than if it's just, things, 5 things to do after being arrested that every other lawyer is posting online as well. We talked a little about leveraging your downtime. Another great thing to do too is driving people back to your site, or if you have a blog that you write, using social media to drive people back there is very effective. Spend time researching what you're posting. Make sure you review what make sure you include an image in the post. Make sure you have some kind of catchy headline. I'm not really a huge fan of just auto posting on social networks. The less authentic that your social networking looks, or their social media usage looks or feels, the less people are going to engage it, right? No one wants to engage with some software API that's just pumping out stuff that nobody's really interested in. I think Dora mentioned this earlier, sharing and commenting on content from other sites, blogs. Again, you're providing that feedback that, hey, I'm actually listening, I'm reading what you're writing. That's going to encourage more people to also read and comment on your stuff. So, to give take, just like any relationship, online's the same thing. If you're just the kind of person who's just talk and not listening, people aren't going to want to engage with you as much as if you're, participating in contributing to the stuff that they're posting online. Repurposing content, a lot of people worry about, well, gosh, it's really hard to come up with stuff all the time. Slight variations or adding on to ideas from content that you're writing. If you see an interesting article that's on a subject that you are, knowledgeable about, I think, referencing that, adding on to that, to ideas in that, taking a position, disagreeing with it even, and then sharing that on social media. That's really a good way to attract and encourage a conversation. And then video, if you can pull it off, video is really, really effective. Again, this is not a time to reproduce your television ads, but video really does give people a sense of what it would be like to work with you. It gives people a sense of what your personality is, and it's really a great medium for also demonstrating your knowledge. But again, the devil's in the details with video. If you don't have a lot of experience with video, or if you're a little bit self-conscious on video, it can end up being more of a liability than an asset. On the other hand, again, start practicing. Just having conversations. Have somebody film you on your iPhone so you can get a sense of what it looks like. That stuff can be really, really effective on social networks. People want to engage with video. It's most of the web is going to be video if it's not already video. And so, if you haven't spent any time thinking about video, I think it's a good time to start investing in that. And now I'll turn it over to Joe.
Well, thanks very much. So I've been practicing for 30 years, so I've kind of gone through the full gamut of how one attracts clients. When I first started in the late 80s, if you spent $5,000 a month getting a full-page phone book ad, your phone would ring all the time. You'd have so many people calling that you couldn't handle it at times. Now the yellow pages get delivered to my house. I may not notice for a couple of days. It may just be at the end of the driveway getting soggy. And then I look in there to see who are the dinosaurs that are still advertising in the phone books. And that's because nobody picks up a book anymore to get information, which is sad in some ways, but it's the reality. We used to advertise in a magazine that was handed out to everybody who was in a fraternity or a sorority at the university in our town, but college kids don't look at books anymore. They weren't even aware of it. They threw it away without even knowing what it was. So your clients are looking at their phones all the time. And I read a book on marketing that was written a few years ago that said that 20% of the time when somebody is accessing the internet over their phone, they're looking at Facebook. And so you need to be on Facebook if you're not there. You need to have a professional site on Facebook that people can look at and know who you are. Couple thoughts about that. One is, remember that you're a lawyer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you have a private Facebook page where you express your opinions, people are going to see that. I had an associate who doesn't work for me anymore who had some sort of extreme political opinions. And when I would go into court from time to time, other lawyers and judges would talk to me about what they had seen him post on his private Facebook page. And of course, he has a First Amendment right to do that. I never told him not to, but it was definitely something that was making an impact on other people. And just remember that, anything you put on the internet is out there forever. There's no way to get rid of it. So if you're just getting started, what you want to do is have information on the website or on the web, on the internet, that someone can go to and get a feel for who you are. If you have never blogged before, or if you are afraid of the word blog, you're making a mistake. If there's an issue that you're passionate about, so a new case has come out that is significant in your area of practice, if you just write 2 or 3 paragraphs about why it's an important case, what makes it significant, and put it on your website, you're blogging. and that's all you need to do. And so you need to put out new content like that from time to time. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to be several times a day. But you can't let your social media presence sort of linger and not have any updates to it for months at a time, because then nobody's going to notice you anymore. I think it really is important to get your expertise out there, because if you think about it, the last time somebody asked you about an attorney in another state, or maybe even in your state, that you didn't know, you didn't pick up a book. You went online, you did some research on the person, you saw what was out there. And your clients are doing the same thing. I can't tell you how many clients I get that will come in and talk to me about they've read client reviews on some of the different websites that really impressed them. And that's something you have to do. If you've had a good case, a successful result, you have to ask the client if they would be willing to anonymously post their opinions about you, because it makes a big difference to the people who are out there who are looking to hire an attorney. A couple things you have to remember. Be careful about who you are Facebook friends with. We're going to talk a little while about ethics, but there are ethical restrictions to, for example, being Facebook friends with a judge. So you have to sort of monitor that, and you have to make a decision about who it is that's going to be your Facebook friend and whether that's going to cause a problem for you the next time that you're in court. Twitter is kind of a great resource as well, but the problem is it's very fast, very reactionary. We've sort of seen that in the political system, that there's been some issues with tweets going out a little too quickly, and that can be a problem. It's also the same problem that you kind of run into when you hire somebody else to put out content for you. Some of it may be great, but some of it may not be what you're looking for. If you hire one of these companies to put out content for you on a regular basis, they may be searching for anything that has the word criminal law in it, and there's a lot of sort of odd cases that get publicity that may not be the image that you want to put out there. So I guess my main message is you do need to have a presence on the internet. It needs to be something that people can go to, do their own research on, and walk away from saying, this is somebody that's really going to help me. This is somebody who really knows what they're doing. And everything that you do has to be sort of directed towards that goal. Those are kind of my thoughts, and I'm going to turn it over to our next presenter.
Thank you, Joe and Dee and Dory. We want to launch into our panel discussion, Q&A. Please remember to submit your questions via the webinar platform. I'm going to kick it off with a few questions that have already been submitted. So, Guy, you're up first, and the question is, for a small practice with a limited budget, what is the most cost-effective medium for advertising using social media?
So that's a great question. I get asked it all the time, and unfortunately, the answer is a little bit more nuanced, and it depends on a lot of things. Because when you say cost-effective advertising, are we talking about cost per click, cost per client, cost per phone call? But I will say this: in terms of if you have a small budget, assuming that you're a criminal defense lawyer, serves a local area, you're probably looking at Facebook. And you're probably looking at some kind of paid promotion on Facebook, whether that's a boosted post to get people back to your website, or maybe it's some kind of lead campaign. But Facebook, you're going to find, has the most affordable clicks that you can probably buy, depending on what kind of targeting you're doing, but certainly going to be much more effective than, say, Twitter or AdWords in terms of just if you're talking purely on cost per click and that kind of thing. But I do think it's worth noting that even with limited budgets, it's important to keep in mind people on search have intent. They are actively looking for what they're searching for. Social media, they don't. So social media doesn't have that intent component. So be careful. Make sure you have very clear goals established for what you're trying to do with your social media advertising dollars before you just go and spend a bunch of money just to get clicks.
Okay, excellent. Dory, this question came in. I'm pretty sure that we have some participants that may or may not be attorneys, but they deal with the marketing for their firm. Do you have any advice for social media managers who receive pushback from attorneys who don't fully understand the positive impact of social media marketing?
Yes, great question. Actually, I would suggest trying two things. One would be to really help them understand that social media really isn't an option anymore. It's kind of similar to the way websites were like 10, 15 years ago. People expect to see service, especially service providers, on social media. That's where they check you out, see what's going on. If you're not there, it looks bad. And if you are there, it's an awesome opportunity to show who you are, build that trust. So I would encourage them social media from that aspect with the marketing and what the potential is there. The second thing I would try is to keep bringing the conversation back to the end goals. If the end goal is to market, if the end goal of your marketing is to provide, to grow the success of your business, then keep bringing that back, like how social media, because of the sheer numbers of people on social media and what they're there for, with answering their, getting their questions answered, of the fact that 1 in 4 attorneys are getting clients that way. I would try to keep reminding them that social media marketing is another tool to use for the end goal of a more successful firm.
Okay, thank you. Joe, I have a question for you as a practicing attorney. How can a sole practitioner practice and best maintain a social media presence without going insane?
Good question. It's always difficult. As a solo practitioner, and I was one for many years, you end up spending about half your time managing your business, and there's never enough time to do all the work that you want to do and all of the managing of the business that you want to do. You have to invest the time and money to get a good web presence up on the internet. And then really I think it's just a matter of having the discipline to sit down maybe twice a month and just write out a few paragraphs on something that's important. The great thing is that it can be related to a case you've just done. It can be related to a motion that you've just filed. It can be related to something that happened in court, and it doesn't have to be long. I've seen blog posts that are 11 pages long. I don't think I've actually read them. But it's just a matter of getting a few paragraphs out there, making the time to do that. It really will make a big impact if you go ahead and do that.
So quality over quantity.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know any shortcut. You're actually going to have to sit down and write a few paragraphs out. If you try to source that out to somebody else, it's just not going to have the same impact.
Hey, Joe, as a follow-up, kind of a follow-up question to that, this question is specifically about Twitter and tweeting, but I think it can probably cover a multitude of social media platforms. But the question is it better to tweet law-related material, such as important cases, legislation, or your opinion about those things?
A little bit of both. I think if you're just saying, here is a case that came down today, it's not going to be effective for you. You have to have something about this is why this is an important case, which really is your opinion about it. Sort of the danger is not expressing an opinion about a case. The danger is, expressing an opinion about current events that are going to, some people are going to have a bad reaction to. If there is, someone that is being manhunted nationally, you don't want to express an opinion about that. But if there's a new case in your jurisdiction that affects how police are going to be doing roadblocks, you do want to comment on that.
Okay, thank you. Dory, I think this is a great question, and Joe touched on it a little bit as he talked earlier, but the question is, using third-party vendors to populate web page stories or to populate your social media page, good idea or bad idea?
Great question. All right, this is generally a good idea with a few caveats. So the first thing to keep in mind is when you're dealing with content from either third-party vendors or other websites is that content belongs on your social media profiles, not on your website and not on your blog. You want to make sure that on your website and your blog you're using unique content that's targeted to your demographic. But yeah, if you want to share good articles, if a third-party vendor can supply that, you want to make sure that that vendor understands your business goals to your clients. It's adding something to the conversation. It's being written in a style and a tone that you feel is appropriate for as a representation of your firm. And the third thing to keep in mind if you're using any kind of other vendor for content curation is add your own comment to it. Make sure you're not just putting an article out there without some kind of reference to how you would view this, what your views are on the article and how it corresponds to or can help your clients.
Okay, and Guy, I want to ask you, this question came in, I think you will have some great insight here, but the question is how to sync or tie multiple social media platforms together.
Right, so I'm going to answer it a couple different ways. So one is, everybody's looking for ways to automate and make social networking more efficient, and so there are tools like Hootsuite, and there's a bunch of other, if you just type in social media management platforms, there's a ton. And I think those are fine, and they can help a little bit in terms of having, hey, I got all of my accounts and pages and networks up in one place. But you got to be careful because that proclivity to want to automate things can often make your social media presence look inauthentic. And so once you cross over into it looks like you're auto-posting the same thing over and over again across many networks, I think you lose the essence of what social media is really the most effective for, which is actually having conversations, meeting new people, creating, nurturing, and solidifying professional relationships. So you want to be really careful with that. And the different platforms have different features. So if you're using hashtags across all the platforms, there are going to be certain platforms where the hashtags don't really come across. They don't seem to really fit the right way. And then again, if you're using @replies, if you're posting on Hootsuite and you're connecting Twitter and Facebook and using @replies to include other handles, and those pop up on Facebook, you're basically telling people on Facebook that you're just posting this on Twitter and it happens to be cross-posted. So I'd be really careful about that kind of stuff. It's not to say that using something like Hootsuite, there's a tool called MeetEdgar which helps automate a lot of this stuff. If you can pull it off in a way that still maintains authenticity, I think it can be great. But again, the most effective use of this stuff is going to be, actually having conversations, commenting, engaging, versus sheerly, posting just blog posts and that's it. That's more of just like this one-way broadcast. Not to say those things aren't important. They're very useful. And I think automating is good for filling some of the time where maybe you can't do it, but you can't actually participate, but you're going to get a lot more value out of this stuff when you're actually having conversations, identifying whether it's a local business page or nonprofit or community page, participating in group conversations. That's the stuff that helps you stay in people's mind versus just another, broadcast post on some kind of legal issue that, most people aren't even interested in.
Right. Joe, wanted to ask you this question, as, and even thinking about your law firm and your social media marketing as you get people that make comments or post on things that you post, is it best to personally address queries or tweets or posts, etc., or should a lawyer maintain a, quote, professional distance?
That's a really good question. There are a lot of times when your response to somebody is going to be something like, it really depends on the details of the situation. We do offer a free consultation if you want to come in and discuss this further, but it's hard to give you general advice. Or, if you're looking for an attorney in your area, we'd be happy to do that. Just contact me personally. Because there are times that you will get somebody that will say, hey, I just got subpoenaed to be a witness in a case against my husband. Do I have to go into court? And obviously, that is red flags and danger. When you're doing that, you're going to say, you have to follow the law, but, if there's some special circumstances, please contact me personally and we can discuss that and I can give you more information. But any time that somebody's really looking for specific legal advice in their case, it's always better to be general about it and to invite a private conversation in a private arena.
And Joe, real quickly, what are appropriate disclaimers to list on your site to advise visitors or surfers that legal advice is not provided and there's no attorney-client relationship created by visiting your site and posting questions? Can you speak to that a little bit?
It's pretty much just what you're saying. It has to be out there that, this, I'm not your attorney because, I'm answering a question. I'm not your attorney because you have sent me a query on the website. How you want to phrase that, I don't know if there's magical language, but there has to be something there to let people know that. Because, I've had people come in and talk to me and not pay me and then call up to complain about, how the whole reason they hired me was to handle this. I'm like, but you never hired me. You get people online that think that you are their attorney because they've answered the question. You've got to be clear and you've got to sort of lay that down and let people know that.
And Joe, for a firm with multiple attorneys, do you recommend that each attorney have a split professional personal profile? How do you recommend that that the firm synchronize those efforts with its individual attorneys? How does your firm handle that?
Well, we have an email account, for example. We have a website. And so everybody has a professional, email account. We post blogs on our website, and we sort of rotate who does that. And so, the different lawyers in the law firm may be doing it at different times. I will tell you, I have a personal like Facebook page. I have a personal Twitter account. I just don't use it much because it really is concerning to me that I'm going to say or do something that's going to offend people, and I'm not someone that has a strong need to take pictures of the food I'm eating and put it out on the internet for everybody. But if you want to express your personal opinions, that you're certainly entitled to, but I would not do it under anything relating to my law firm. It would have to be completely separate.
Okay. Guy, wanted to ask you, and is there a sense how people feel about sponsored content on Facebook? And is there any research that shows people like it and believe it, or do people resent getting sponsored ads?
Well, it depends on what's in the ad, right? So, and then you asked if people like it and believe it. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of sponsored content on Facebook that is totally fake, and a lot of people are believing in a political sense, but we'll leave that for another day. Here's the things to remember about Facebook. Facebook has shareholders, and they have to make money. And so if you want to know more about this, you can go research things like visibility of organic posts on Facebook, and can't remember, some reach apocalypse. I think that's the tag phrase that they've been using. But Facebook limits your organic reach, especially for business pages, which means that if you post something on Facebook, and I'm sure if lawyers have done this on their business pages, it'll say seen by 4 people. And if you've developed a good following and you've got a lot of engagement, you can make that number go up. But the truth is, especially if you're getting started, you're probably going to have to buy some reach. And so doing that through a boosted content piece is probably going to be the most effective way to do that in the short term. So the answer is that if you're purely putting out there, free consultation, or did you have a DUI, like you're trying to repeat what you did on TV or in your direct mail pieces, I think you're going to find that a lot of people you're going to see people either hiding the post or reporting the post. They're not going to like that kind of thing in their Facebook feed. On the other hand, if you're providing information, if you're highlighting good deeds you're doing in your community, if you're highlighting charities that you support and that kind of thing, and you boost those posts, you get a lot better response. And again, I think that the thing here to remember is Facebook provides you the stats on the engagement with your posts. So you can see the posts that people liked, you can see the posts that people shared, you can see the posts that people commented on, and then you'll start to notice patterns and do more of what is generating that kind of engagement and do less of the stuff that people are, hiding from their feed. So you can see that all right in your dashboard of your Facebook Business Manager. But again, I think the key is to focus on what are the things that people are going to find interesting. That's not to say you can't do direct response marketing. You can. But again, if you really want to, if your goal is to build a following, if your goal is to build exposure and get people to engage with your content on Facebook, boosted posts, make it interesting, and highlight those good works that you're doing in your firm.
That's great stuff, and especially the part about measuring and what you're doing, because there's an old saying, we can't manage what we can't measure, and I love that you can measure that. So great advice. Follow the breadcrumbs. Love that. Here, Guy, quick follow-up. This question came in, and how do you rate the importance of spending money for social media in your social media presence and marketing versus SEO?
That's a great question too, and my attitude is that so SEO, for those that don't know what that is, that's search engine optimization. It's basically coming up in Google's organic results. At the end of the day, any time or money investment that you spend online, just like every other marketing or advertising or network investment, has to meet some kind of objective. So whether that is return on investment, return on ad spend, or getting people to sign up for a list so that you can send them emails down the road, all of those things have to be, they've got to be carrying their own water. And so it's hard to compare SEO versus Facebook, just in the sense that, again, search has intent. And so what you find is that tends to be the most efficient in terms of converting from a click into a client, because someone went online, they searched for something that's hopefully relevant to what they're looking for, and your site comes up, you demonstrate your knowledge and experience on your page, they call you, and if it's a good fit, they hire you. Whereas Facebook, it's a lot more nurturing, right? It's a lot more relationship, it's a lot softer, it's a lot more referral-based, because people on Facebook, the overwhelming majority of people aren't actually on there looking. Now, that's actually changing, and we've actually seen the last couple of years there are a lot more people asking for specific recommendations on Facebook, but search still has intent, Facebook doesn't, and so it's kind of apples and oranges. I will say this, your cost per acquisition for a client on, if you're in a competitive market in DUI, is going to be much higher likely on search, so for SEO, than it is going to be on Facebook. On the other hand, if you're in an area where there's not a lot of competition, you can show up in the Google local packs if there's not a lot of other firms around, and that can be an extremely lucrative place to be for people that are doing direct business lookups for DUI lawyer in your area. So there's so many factors at play here. I really am reluctant to try to pit Facebook versus AdWords, but I will say this, the cost per clicks on Facebook are going to be astronomically lower than they are on AdWords, and your investment in SEO in a competitive environment is going to be a lot higher than it is on Facebook.
Okay, excellent. Dory, want to ask you, should you have, this question came in from the audience, should you have links to your social media sites on your firm's website?
Absolutely. You want to have those links there. You don't necessarily want to drive people off your website, though, so I would recommend putting them to either in the footer or on the side, but you do want to make sure people know you have a social media presence. And it's also good if you have, like, I don't know if you're on WordPress or whatever, you can have a plugin that feeds your blog content onto the homepage as well, just to give people a better idea of your expertise and knowledge base. But yeah, I would have the links on there, but just maybe not highly visible, because you do want to keep people on your website.
Okay. And Guy, we had a question. Could you please repeat the app or software that helps to cross-post material?
Sure. Hootsuite is one. There's Sprout Social. I mean, if you just search like social media management tools, you'll get, top 10 social media management tools of 2017 lists from Social Media Examiner. But Hootsuite, that's Hootesuite. That's a very popular one.
Okay, thank you. And Joe wanted to ask you this question. What are the ethical pitfalls in responding to negative postings on social media?
Well, they're big. They're huge. There have been a few ethics opinions from around the country in the last 3-4 years ago. There was an attorney in Illinois that either got suspended or disbarred. I can't remember, because she was responding to a negative comment that somebody did. The issue was that she went into the details about the case and the client to explain her actions and to try to justify her actions in the case, which was a disclosure of privileged information that wasn't sanctioned by the client. And so the fact that you've been attacked doesn't mean that you get to respond. The confidentiality restrictions that apply in every other part of your job as an attorney still apply to the website. And from time to time, you get posts that are unfavorable and probably unfairly unfavorable. About all you can do, the best response is to reach out to other attorneys or other clients and to see if they are willing to say something favorable about you, which drives the comment down further on the page and makes it less visible. But you cannot respond and divulge confidential information even if you're being attacked.
Yeah, absolutely. Guy, what are the types of topics that are worthwhile to share or post other than professional attorney updates and articles?
So I always like to say, explore what you're actually interested in, right? So like find things that you're interested in your personal life that lend themselves to sharing online. I mentioned, any kind of nonprofit work or charity work that you do, but maybe you're into running 5Ks. There are going to be whole communities of people online that are going to be talking about that, cycling. Find those things that you're interested in, find where people are having those conversations, and again, that's going to be the kind of stuff that people are actually going to want to engage with. So, there's so much to be said for doing well by doing good, and sharing that online is the kind of thing that people actually want to see, especially at the local level. So maybe it's coaching a youth team. Maybe it's, I know some people are very passionate about college sports. I think Joe makes some good points that you're definitely going to turn some people off depending on what you share online, but you also got to be careful that you don't dilute your message so much that you don't appeal to anybody. So there's a balance there, and you got to figure out what your comfortability level is. But I certainly think that the charity causes, youth organizations, community events, those are the kind of things that I think that you can put a very nice engagement into your social posts and still not, turn everybody off. Some lawyers are very passionate about certain political things. If that's your thing, I think you can get a lot of engagement out of that. But as Joe mentioned, you might turn off a lot of people. I think that depending on what kind of practice you have, though, to a certain extent, there are going to be things that, legislatively that, I think that it's important for lawyers to take a stand on, take a leadership role in their community, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, and I was going to ask as a follow-up question, would you advise law firms and attorneys to steer clear of religious or political, post, just because of the climate and the fear of alienating half of your audience?
Sure, and again, it depends on the nature of the post, right? So if it's if it's just rank like political, hostility stuff, I don't think that that's appropriate, and I think it's going to cost you more than it is going to gain. But if there's something going on in your community, especially in your local community, that's relevant to your practice, that you feel passionate about, I think that those types of things that you should consider. But there's really no bright line rule on this stuff, right? I mean, you've got to find your own comfortability level. My thing is I tend to see a lot of law firms that do I have a Facebook page, I post, some generic legal stuff like the list of 10 things to do after you're arrested. That stuff you might as well not post, in my opinion. I just don't think that that's going to, time and time out, you're not going to generate a lot of engagement with that. You've got to be thinking, what can I put on here that's interesting? Of course that you've got to be comfortable with it, and of course you don't want to disenfranchise your large target audience of people, but at the same time you've got to stand for something, or else you stand for nothing.
And Dory, let me ask, we're just about at the end of our time, but I do want to ask one final question. I think it's a great question, especially for our audience. As a solo attorney whose practice is substantially criminal defense, or almost, maybe even entirely criminal defense, what, in your opinion, and with your expertise in the social media arena, what is the best social media site or avenues, or maybe give us one or two?
Well, I would say, and I think Guy and Joe both touched on this as well, most of the people are on Facebook, and as criminal defense attorneys, I would think that you want to be where most of the people are. So I would say if your goal is referrals through, of people, potential clients, I would say Facebook. LinkedIn is an excellent source for business referrals, just pretty much across the board.
Okay, thank you so much. And I want to thank Guy and Joe and Dory for participating today. I learned a ton. I hope that, our participants did as well. We put some additional resources on the screen for you. We will have this deck available, I believe, for all participants. And also wanted to mention, as you exit this webinar, there's going to be a brief survey. It would be extremely beneficial for us, and we would certainly appreciate if you would take 2 minutes to fill out the survey, provide your feedback. We do these for you. So again, we thank you for participating, and hope you have a great afternoon.